It all began with a phone call, one of those that wakes you up just enough to make reality feel skewed. Jacob Turner, a 47-year-old history teacher from a small suburb near Portland, stared at the screen. Unknown caller. At 2:17 a.m., against his better judgment, he picked up. What he heard wasn't a voice. It was his own breathing. Then, a whisper, a sharp intake of breath, followed by his own voice, unmistakably his, saying, "Don't look at the mirror, not tonight." The call ended before Jacob could respond. He sat up, sweat beading down his neck, and involuntarily turned to the large antique mirror hanging on his bedroom wall. His reflection stared back, but with a half-second delay. His breath caught. He blinked. The reflection didn't. The next day, Jacob tried to shake the incident off as sleep paralysis or a dream, but it lingered. His students noticed he seemed distracted. He told no one. That night, around the same time, 2:17 a.m., a knock echoed through the hallway. A slow, deliberate knock. 3 taps. Silence. 3 taps again. Jacob opened the door. No one. He walked back in, unsettled. As he passed the mirror again, he noticed something impossible. His reflection's shirt was different. Not just color, style. It looked like something from decades ago. His pulse quickened. When he lifted his hand, the reflection lagged again, and then smiled. Jacob didn't. He covered the mirror with a bedsheet. The knocking persisted nightly, same time, same pattern. 3 days later, he heard the whisper again, from behind the sheet. This time, the voice said, "You're on the wrong side." Desperate, Jacob called a psychologist. She came over, checked the mirror, found nothing wrong. As she left, she paused by the mirror and said, "Odd, my reflection winked." Jacob's face turned pale. That night, the mirror was uncovered. He hadn't done it. And now his reflection wasn't alone. There was something behind it. A figure, standing still but with eyes wide open, staring at Jacob. Jacob stopped sleeping. He kept the lights on, watched the mirror from across the room, clutching a baseball bat. His phone recorded every night. One clip caught a chilling detail. The mirror didn't reflect the rest of the room correctly. Objects were missing, distorted. Sometimes the reflection was darker than the room itself, like a storm was brewing behind the glass. That night, he thought he saw something crawl out. A hand, pale and long-fingered, pressing against the glass from the inside, dragging down as if marking territory. He dropped the bat and staggered back, the breath stolen from his chest. The whisper returned, this time clearer. "It's your turn now." Jacob began filming the mirror at night. Reviewing the footage revealed things he hadn't seen in real time, like himself standing behind himself. One clip showed him sleeping, then standing by the bed simultaneously, whispering things to himself. He couldn't explain it, and no one believed it. He called his sister, begged her to stay the night. She laughed at him at first, until 2:17 a.m. came. They watched together as the mirror uncovered itself again. This time, her reflection waved. Not her reflection, and it mouthed something Jacob couldn't forget. "One leaves, one remains." Jacob vanished the next night. His sister awoke to an empty house. The police found nothing but his phone, left recording in front of the mirror. The final footage chilled them all. Jacob stepped into the mirror, not metaphorically. His body passed through like mist. And then, his reflection blinked. But Jacob's real body never came back. What did was the reflection. It lived, it moved freely, It smiled too much. His eyes were slightly off, like the muscles didn't know how to blink naturally. The mirror was no longer a boundary, it was a door. 2 months later, the house sold to a young couple, Ben and Alina. They knew nothing. On their third night, Alina woke up at 2:17 a.m. to a whisper, "Don't look at the mirror, not tonight." She turned slowly and screamed. Her reflection was dressed in a wedding gown, her face aged 20 years. Ben rushed in, but the mirror now reflected the bedroom differently. The walls cracked, the floor rotted, and behind Alina's reflection stood Jacob. Still smiling, still watching, Ben dug into the house's history. Records showed Jacob had lived there alone for 15 years, but police reports hinted at dozens of missing persons linked to the address. A few were former students, all gone without a trace. No pattern, except the same time. 2:17 a.m. The couple tried to leave, but every route they took circled them back to the house. GPS glitched. Street signs changed. The sun never rose. The town was gone. The house, inescapable. The mirror, waiting. Alina tried breaking the mirror. Hammer, fire, acid. Nothing left a scratch. Instead, the mirror fought back, showing them twisted versions of themselves. In one, Ben was digging a grave. In another, Alina held a baby with hollow eyes. Worst of all, one reflection showed them both asleep, while another couple entered the house. The realization hit. The mirror was never showing reflections. It showed outcomes, possible futures, or perhaps memories of those who'd already fallen inside. Each vision a seed to make them doubt their reality, crack their minds, until they were ready. Ben disappeared on the 7th night. Alina found a note written in his handwriting that simply said, "I traded places." The mirror now showed her reflection alone. No Jacob, no Ben, only herself, and the faintest grin that did not belong. She screamed, tried to smash the glass with everything she had, but all she broke was the furniture around it. Exhausted, she sat before the mirror and whispered, "Please, let me out." The reflection leaned forward, face pressed against the other side of the glass, and mouthed, "Too late." It started with a phone call, a call that came exactly at 3:17 a.m., just like it had every night for the past week. Mark Fisher, a 47-year-old electrician from Milwaukee, jolted upright in bed, drenched in sweat. The phone's screen glowed with the same unknown number, no name, no area code. He didn't answer anymore. The first time, all he heard was his own breathing and a whisper, barely audible but chilling. Again, his wife, Dana, had begged him to switch it off. "It's just some idiot playing games," she insisted. But Mark couldn't. Something about it felt intentional, like the call was meant for him and no one else. And the worst part, he'd started waking up minutes before the ringtone, as if something inside him already knew it was coming. A few days later, while fixing a blown fuse in their damp basement, Mark noticed something strange. The circuit breaker had already been flipped. That wasn't unusual, but the exact same fuse had blown 2 nights ago. He'd replaced it then, and now it looked old again, as if time had reversed it. He stared at his toolbox and blinked. It was in the exact same position, with the wrench resting diagonally across the hammer, just as it had been days before. "No way," he whispered. "I moved that." Mark felt an icy shiver crawl down his back. He looked up at the pipes and saw a drop of water fall. then another, all in perfect rhythm, like the ticking of a metronome. One morning, while shaving, Mark saw something in the mirror that made him freeze. A shadow moved behind him, not Dana, not even human. Tall, hunched, and completely still. But when he turned around, there was nothing. He leaned in closer to the mirror. His reflection stared back, but something about it was off. The left eye blinked half a second later than the right. His reflection smirked when he didn't. Mark stumbled back, heart pounding. "What the hell is happening to me?" he muttered. Dana found him later, still in the bathroom, staring blankly at the mirror. The dreams came next. Dreams where he'd wake up in the same room, hear the same phone ring, go to the basement, see himself flick the same fuse switch over and over again. But in each dream, a figure got closer, a man with no face, a voice that whispered, "Repeat, repeat, repeat." Mark kept a journal and wrote down every detail. That's when he noticed the real horror. Everything was repeating exactly. Dates, words, movements. He showed Dana, but she didn't believe him. "This is stress, Mark. You need to sleep." But he had been sleeping in the same nightmare. Then, on the 8th night, Dana was gone. Her side of the bed was cold. Her phone was still on the charger, her shoes by the door, but no sign of her. Mark searched the entire house, the neighborhood, even called the police. But to them, there was no record of Dana Fisher existing, not in marriage licenses, not in hospital records, not even in old photographs. Every image she'd ever been in was suddenly missing, or worse, altered. In one photo, Mark stood alone on their wedding day. His hand was curled as if holding someone's waist, but the space beside him was empty. Mark spiraled into madness, or so he thought. He began finding objects he hadn't seen in years. His father's watch that he'd buried with him, an old calendar from 2002 with today's date circled in red, and a Polaroid of himself standing outside his current house. But it was dated 1989. The photo showed him older, grey-haired, but smiling the same way he did now. "This can't be real," he gasped. The edges of time around him began to blur. Clocks froze mid-tick. People outside seemed to move in slow motion, and every mirror now showed a slightly older version of himself, staring back with cold, dead eyes. On the 12th night, the phone rang again. 3:17 a.m. Mark picked it up. This time, a voice answered. His own voice. "You have to stop. Don't go to the basement. Don't touch the fuse. It resets everything." Mark's hands shook. "Who are you?" "I'm you. Or I was. This is the 14th cycle. Every time you flip the switch, the loop starts over. You lose Dana. You lose time. You lose yourself." Mark dropped the phone. He raced downstairs. The fuse box stood there, waiting, but this time he didn't touch it. Instead, he ripped the wires from the wall with trembling hands. The lights flickered, then silence. The next morning, sunlight poured through the window. The phone was silent. Dana was beside him, sleeping peacefully. Mark wept. He kissed her cheek, ran to the mirror. No shadow, no smirking reflection. Everything felt normal, until he looked at the clock. 3:17 a.m. the phone rang. This time, Mark ignored the call. He covered his ears, shut his eyes. But the ringing didn't stop. It grew louder, more aggressive, until the phone exploded in sparks. Lights flickered violently, and the house groaned like it was alive. Then he heard it. A knock, slow, deliberate, coming from the basement door. Not the usual creak, but a knock. He tiptoed down the hallway, every step hesitant. As he reached the door, he could hear breathing on the other side. Not animal, not human, something caught between. He reached for the doorknob. It was hot, burning hot. Before he could turn it, the door flung open on its own. Beyond it, pure blackness. And something moved in that dark. Something waiting. That night, Mark set up a camera. He needed proof, something to anchor him to reality. He recorded himself sleeping, every angle covered. At 3:17 a.m., the footage went black. When it returned, he was gone. But the bed looked slept in. The covers were disturbed. The camera kept recording for hours until it captured him walking back into the room, but with dead eyes, dried blood at his collar, and a different shirt. Dana screamed when she saw the footage. "That's not you," she cried. "That's not Mark." But Mark had no memory of leaving, no memory of returning. And on his neck he noticed a mark, like a handprint, charred into his skin. He flipped through his journal. The final entry, not in his handwriting, read, "You are the echo. The echo becomes the origin. Repeat." It started with a message on a fogged bathroom mirror. "You've been here before." Simon paused, toothbrush halfway to his mouth, staring at the words that hadn't been there the moment before. He lived alone, no guests, no recent repairs, and the window was shut tight. A chill rolled down his spine as the letters began to fade slowly with the evaporating steam. He rubbed his eyes and looked again. Nothing, just condensation. That morning was already heavy with rain, grey light filtering through the apartment's blinds like the world itself was half asleep. Simon didn't think much of the message. Maybe he was more tired than he realised. Maybe he'd written it himself in a haze, the way people sleepwalk. He chuckled dryly, shaking off the unease. But there was something odd about the apartment that day, something intangible, like a background hum just outside his hearing. At the office, things got stranger. Simon reached his desk on the 14th floor of the Midtown insurance firm, where he'd worked for 10 years. As he settled in, he noticed the calendar on his desk still said Monday, but today was Wednesday. He clearly remembered Tuesday. The meeting, the spilled coffee, the email he sent to a client named Rhonda Jacobs. But when he searched his sent folder, nothing. And Rhonda, according to the system, no such client existed. Co-workers gave him odd looks when he asked about the Tuesday meeting. "There wasn't a meeting yesterday, Simon. You've been out sick since the weekend," said Erica from HR. Simon laughed, but the sound caught in his throat. He didn't feel sick. He remembered everything clearly, so why was the world insisting he didn't? That evening, disoriented and shaken, Simon boarded the 6:15 train from Grand Central, his usual commute home. The train car was half empty, the quiet almost oppressive. At the next stop, a woman stepped on board, drenched from the rain, hair clinging to her face. She sat directly across from him, her eyes wide, unblinking. "You need to get out," she whispered. Her voice was brittle, desperate. Simon's heart thumped. "Excuse me?" "The loop. It resets at 3:17 a.m. You need to break the cycle before then." Simon stared. "What loop?" She reached into her soaked coat and pulled out a cracked Polaroid. In the photo, Simon, slumped on the same train seat, eyes empty. You die here, over and over. Simon awoke in bed, heart racing. Sunlight beamed through the blinds. Another Wednesday. His phone buzzed with an alert. Meeting today at 10:30 a.m. with Rhonda Jacobs. Simon's hands trembled. He had just dreamed of her not existing. With dread pooling in his stomach, he checked his calendar. Monday again. He bolted to the mirror. Nothing. He turned on the shower, watched the steam rise, waited. Slowly, like breath returning to a corpse, the same words appeared. You've been here before. Simon did everything differently. Called out of work, stayed home, tried to meditate, journal, breathe. At noon, someone knocked, a courier with a package, no return address. Inside, another Polaroid. Simon on the train, mouth open in a silent scream, scrawled across the back in red ink. 3:17 a.m. Watched the clock. His breath quickened. He didn't sleep that night. At 3:16, he sat on his couch, staring at the ticking wall clock. At 3:17, the room went black. No warning, no flicker, just total darkness. Then the light returned. Wednesday again. Simon didn't scream this time. He simply sat at the edge of his bed, eyes sunken, the weight of the loop pressing into his bones. He dressed and wandered the city, testing its edges. People greeted him by name. People he didn't know. Stores he visited just yesterday were closed for renovation. He tried jumping into the East River, woke up in bed. Wednesday. He stabbed himself in the stomach, woke up in bed. Wednesday. He screamed in traffic, got hit, woke up in bed. Wednesday. It wasn't until the 5th cycle that he saw himself, another Simon, watching him from the alleyway across his apartment. Not identical, subtly older, more tired. The older Simon nodded once and disappeared into the mist. The message was clearer the next time. You're the last one. Don't fail again. The photo changed too. This time, Simon was standing on the train tracks, looking up at the lights, as if accepting his fate. Simon waited, not in fear, but in focus. He didn't run. He returned to the train, sat in the same seat, and watched the time. 3:16 a.m. The woman returned, her face cracked with exhaustion. You're close, she whispered. Don't listen to what comes next. 3:17. A voice boomed in his head, his mother's voice, then his own. This is your punishment. You don't get to leave. But Simon held on to one thought. What if I do? He stood up, walked to the train door, pulled the emergency lever. The world screamed. Sunlight, real sunlight. Simon awoke in a hospital bed. Nurses spoke to him softly. He'd been in a coma for 6 days, they said. Found collapsed on a subway platform, mumbling numbers in his sleep. He wept, not from joy, but from the terrible realization. The clock on the wall said 3:16, and it was Wednesday.